Hi, it's Brent. Welcome to Theoretically Practical. Today we're doing an episode on my buddy's beautiful 2001 Cat 302.5 mini excavator. He picked this up a couple of weeks ago and he was running it and everything was going fine, but he was having some battery issues. And the other day we started diving into it and man, that rabbit hole was deep. The story's pretty funny. He thought he had a bad starter motor and possibly it was bad. I don't know. I didn't do any looking at it, but he had some battery issues and whatnot, and he had his buddy pick up the starter motor for him because his buddy could get to the dealership during the day and he was busy working. Well, his friend thought he'd do him a good favor and put the starter motor in, which was fine, but one of the things he did is he saw a couple of wires peeking out, these two guys actually peeking out from the side here. So he twisted them together and wire nutted them. So we get over and the thing still won't start. So we get over and we start looking into this thing, going through. I got the wiring diagram out, which is fantastic. Cat has a really good wiring diagram. And all the wires are labeled. It's super nice compared to most of the junk I work on. So we get over to it, we put the battery in and it won't even click over and start. So we're looking around this thing. And as we're looking around, my buddy ended up figuring out that there's a main circuit breaker right there that was popped, this little blue guy right there. But while we were looking at it, one of these solenoids back, let's see if I get a light. So anyways, there's this solenoid back there. It's the yellow guy. And it had some electrical tape on the wire coming out of it. It still does now. Well, I touched it and one of the wires fell off of it. So I don't know if that was connected before or not, so we moved on. Once he hit the reset, we could get it to run, but none of the hydraulics would actuate. So we start digging. I looked through the wiring diagram, and super long story short, what it was is that when his buddy had hooked those two wires together in the hand control, it was telling the machine to lock out the hydraulics but let it start. On this machine, you need to lift one or both of the hand controls up to depress a switch, and that lets it start, but then they both have to be down for it to do the hydraulic thing. And when you put those two wires together that were supposed to be on that button, when you lift it up, the switch puts those two wires together. So anyways, we get that figured out. But wait, there's more. So as we were down in there, I'll climb up into here. While doing a visual inspection down inside near where we were messing with the alternator because that wasn't really working after this. Didn't seem like it was charging. I noticed come on, there we go. Right in front of where my finger's pointing, is the main power wire for the battery. And you can see it's all wrapped in electrical tape. Well, the old alternator, and now has a new alternator, had a little bracket hanging off of that chafed through and was shorting that out. That's why the main fuse blew, and in that process, I think it killed the alternator, or we tried to fix that. But wait, there's more. So we get the thing running. We now have it so the switch knows that it's switching when you lift it up and down. We fixed the solenoid in the back. I soldered the wire back onto that. He did order a new one. I wouldn't want to leave a solder joint in that situation because it's going to likely to get brittle and break. So we get that working. We get it started up. We put the arm down and it sees that the arm is down and this is all well and good. But only part of the hydraulic system works. It would let you rotate but it wouldn't let you do any of the bucket stuff, right? So what we ended up finding is that all these fuses in this fuse box here, as you can see, well, maybe you can, but it was raining today and you see there's water on all of them. Well, no one's ever put dielectric grease on those in their life. And of course, this is what we have to decode what fuse is where. if you can't see anything on that, don't adjust your television. This is just how awful it is. So we basically ended up pulling fuses till we could figure it out, and we eventually found out that this fuse here just wasn't making a good connection. We cleaned it up, put it back in. Obviously it needs more cleaning with proper contact cleaner and dielectric grease, but we had the whole thing back up and running again. So, except for the alternator wasn't charging. So now he's got the new alternator, and in a few minutes when he gets back, he's grabbing the battery so that we can start it up. Hopefully this starts up and everything runs and everything works, and then we are going to check the alternator with a multimeter and see what happens. Now, I did check the alternator with a multimeter, but it was like you'd rev it up a little bit and the battery voltage would go up a tiny bit, but it really wasn't consistent, and given the large short and the nature of that, it could quite well be dead. And also this thing has an alternator the size of a teacup that they're trying to pull 90 amps from, so there's all sorts of things like that. But yeah, anyways, I'll do a little walk around the machine, and I'll point out a few other maintenance issues it's going to have. I get the feeling from him and the guy he got from basically that it was, you know, a rich guy's toy. So that's why it's a 2001. It has 1,200 hours on it, which is fantastic. What I really like about it is that these are all, the hand controls are all pilot operated hydraulics. So there's no electronics in here, which is fantastic. It's got a cute little, I think it's a 26 or 27 horsepower, 3-cylinder diesel in here. Runs like a top, just sounds great, starts right up. It does have an oil leak around here. That's one of the issues we're gonna have, but I actually think it might be the valve cap, the oil cap, because when I take it off, this gasket here, which is supposed to be a gasket, it feels as hard as the parent material. It's just not soft at all, has no give to it. So I don't think it's sealing, and also that's the high point of the engine, and there's oil, you know, looks like oil's been leaking from this high point. So that's, my guess is start with that seal and then work your way down. Probably also could use a valve cover gasket or something to that effect. You know, he did the oil change, brand new on it, and everything's good. So we're going to talk about some of the maintenance items now. One of the big ones is, eventually he's going to have to get a side cover here. Now, the previous owner apparently got tired of taking off 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts to get at the hydraulic filter. So he took a sledgehammer and smashed right through it. I kid you not. I don't know how someone could think that's the right thing to do. It offends me to my soul. But everything else on that's really good. The tracks are in great condition. I think they're within a year old. They're really not beat up or worn out. You know, the bogies all look fine on it. The only other major thing I could see that's going to need attention is the seal for this one is just, well, you can see right there's a chunk of seal missing. So this cylinder is going to have to get rebuilt, and we might do that together on the channel. So we're going to throw the battery in here, and I'll film the first startup, and hopefully it just starts up and works with no more troubleshooting. But we all know how that goes, and it doesn't go well. Oh, one other small thing we found and fixed, the fast travel button. One of these leads had broken off, so I soldered it for now, but he's going to get a replacement of this eventually if he uses that feature. So all in all, a really nice machine, and I won't talk price, but he got it for a hell of a deal. So yeah, just needs one of everything, right? Well, now it's properly raining, but we think we have it all good, and we're going to try to start it, and this is definitely the first time and not the 15th time. Hit it. Oh, no. Oh. All right, so we're definitely going to try this for what's absolutely the first try and not the 15th. Go for it. Really? Okay, so there's a problem. problem with the wire that goes from the starter relay to the starter. I touch it and it works. I don't touch it, it doesn't work. I've got the magic fingers, so what can I say? All right, we're gonna have him go for some of the functions of this bad Larry. Give it a, move some stuff around. There we go. All right, so now she's working 110% or at least 74%. Either way. Oh, even the horn works. Look at that. Fancy. So, yeah, I think there's something chafed in that wiring loom or something. We're gonna have to track that down. That's gonna be just an absolute joy to do. But yeah, we'll button her up or give up for the day depending on how much water happens. It's just keeps raining harder, so cool. Oh yeah, and if that's it for this week, then that's this episode on how not to work on heavy equipment. We're playing around with high-speed travel mode because that switch has never worked before, so it's hard to tell, but it's probably almost doubles the speed. There you go. That's awful fast for a little guy. Oh yeah, and she's up to like 13.5 volts. The alternator is now alternating instead of doing nothing. So we're back at it with the mini tractor, and there's a few exhaust issues because this exhaust is, my buddy's starting to undo the flange, but not the bolts for it. This exhaust is a little bit loose. Yeah. And where the pipe comes out the side, I hope you guys can see that. It's no longer connected to the muffler. So we're gonna pop the thing out, see just how bad it is. It looks like it got all cracked up at one point in time and somebody just kind of welded it back together, but we'll figure it out. We'll weld it up, you know, weld on top of weld. Eventually you'll have enough. And we'll get her back together again. But you know, you buy a machine for about 10 grand less than the going rate and it's gonna have 10 grand worth of problems one way or the other. All right, so we got the exhaust system out. The the downpipe right there is fine, all the way down to the bottom. I don't know how easy it is to see, but that's fine, which is good because we do not want to disturb those bolts that are attached to the flange right there. Yeah. And that goes into here on the muffler, which
there's no water pump wires.
which it's just, this is pretty beat up. Obviously somebody got pretty creative with a welder repairing this. I assume that this got hit off. I can't imagine how you could have done this kind of damage to that without ripping a bunch of other stuff off, but maybe it was just vibration over time or whatever. And then the output of that muffler is a little bit we'll say dickered. So you know, the best thing to do would be to replace the muffler, but it's not really rusted out, it's just damaged for whatever reason. And then this is the other exhaust pipe, which we're going to bring with us to the parts store because this end here is the same as what this end should have been. So hopefully we can find something similar to this, and if we can, then we'll cut that off, we'll weld a new one on, and we'll weld that shut. And then, you know, it's not going to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it'll be substantially better, and it won't, you know, I assume that Cat wants something ridiculous. We're also going to weld a washer in front of these holes, because you can see they started out there, but they ended up all the way up to there because these weren't fully tightened. So this whole thing was flopping around. So probably if the original people who repaired it did a good job, it would have been better off. And we'll take a look at these bolts. This is one of the bolts that was in that bracket. And if I move so you can see it, you can see a big chunk taken out of it because it and the bracket ate each other. So this muffler was slowly getting lower, which is probably why that cracked and probably why that cracked. And just, you know, somebody wasn't paying attention when they put it back together. You can all see the threads on this are not great. So we're gonna try to get 2 new bolts like this, 3 new bolts, and we're gonna take one of them and we're gonna score it and use it as a thread chaser. I'll just take an angle grinder and grind down it. I mean, a proper thread chaser would be better, but it's Saturday and we're in Maine, so one does what one needs to do. Unfortunately, these threads that they might have dicked up a little bit are in the block, so whoever put this back together was not making the best of decisions, but what can you do? All right, well, we're just about finished putting in the exhaust. Of course, we couldn't get new bolts, the ones I showed you that were screwed up, but we could get new nuts. So we used those as like dies to clean up the bolts. They went in a lot better. And we Loctited them in place, and now it's properly tightened down. The only other issue we had is that exhaust coupler, the little aluminized coupler we used, is a 1 3/4, so it's like a standard size, and this is a metric exhaust. So it has a lot more take up on the clamp than it otherwise would have, but it's substantially quieter now, and we're going to start it up in a few minutes here, and you'll hear it's quieter. It also doesn't sound like a bag of bolts is rattling around in it, which is you know, a pretty good improvement. We are ready to start it up. And look, it starts. I'll stack some logs, we'll see. I can't operate machinery. Who would have thought, right? Of course, I think I ran an excavator for a couple of days almost 20 years ago. So far what we've done is we cleaned up the fuse area because there were issues there. We wrapped the main power positive lead from the battery cable to keep that from shorting. We replaced the alternator and the starter. Today we welded up the exhaust, and it's actually, this is quiet comparatively. I think there was a few other things, but I can't remember. It needed a lot of little bits of love. What you're gonna see us do in the future though is this is already set up for a thumb, so it actually has the bypassing mode. There's a valve on the side of the rack, and it's got the secondaries. So we can put a thumb on it as well, though it'll be a, I think it'll be a foot operated thumb the way the controls are. So you'll probably see that. Hopefully at some point you'll see us replace that giant ugly hole in the side of it, because that's just terrible. And we'll do maintenance on it, whatever. And maybe I'll film some jobs. Let me know what you like to see. So in the future, we'll be working on that JCB, which my buddy there got for the low price of get it out of my yard or it's going to the scrap yard. It does run. It's got a couple of cylinders that are really bad. But other than that, it just really needs some cleaning up, some paint and whatnot. We'll do stuff with that. That's actually quite a powerful machine. Oh, and the swing of it has like about 10 feet of swing side to side of lash. So it's gonna need some love, but you know, it's a solid place to start. So that's it for this week. I might have to do another outro because I don't know if you can hear me or not. But thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.